In the Las Vegas death match, who stood tall, Randy Macho Man Savage or the master of the Diamond Cutter, Diamond Dallas Page?
Hey guys, Jacqueline had a match against Disco Inferno. Man, the 90s were weird.
He may not have been booked for the pay-per-view, but did the icon Sting show up to battle the NWO? All that and more on today's show. Hit it, Chandler.
No, Sting did not save the day, but that's not important. Sorry to spoil a 27-year-old show for anyone, but welcome to the show. This is Chandler.
Hey, Chad's back again.
Weird. What a weird order we're doing this in.
This is so odd. Is something wrong? No, this is the first episode of our retro view. We decided to review WCW Halloween Havoc 1997. I'll be running the notes. I got some decent play-by-play here, and I'll be passing it off to Dave and Chad. That's probably not where they're at, but I'll be passing it off to both of them to see what they thought. But overall, just a quick rundown. What did you boys think of the show?
Well, me being a WCW boy, the nostalgia, everything, man, it flew by for me, first off. Like, that pay-per-view flew by and quicker than I thought it would. And there are some people that were on the card that we're watching today wrestle,
That was awesome.
believe it or not. Yeah, really loved it. Obviously, I'm a WCW mark. I RIP. Yeah. How about you, Chad?
And it was a trip. It was like when you go back to high school, like, 10 years later, you're like, oh man, this place just seems bigger when I was here. It was great, like you said, seeing some of the people who are still wrestling today, or a lot of people who've actually passed, and one who should have passed and is still somehow alive today, Ric Flair.
I didn't say it, not me. Cut.
It was great though. It was well paced. The action was better than I thought it would be. In my head, I thought it'd be a bunch of like old school WWE, like big lumbering. Yeah, but it was like no, they were crisp. It was good wrestling. So no, it was a good show. It was a fun recommendation from the Daver.
Yeah, I would agree. First off, on your the show flying by, it was only 3 hours. Man, it's almost like 3 hour pay-per-views are a good idea. Cough, cough, AEW, cough, cough.
Tony Khan.
But what?
Tony Khan.
Cough, cough, cough. But I mean, the show flew by. It was great. This is my first WCW show I've ever seen, but I do have some WCW knowledge because I used to listen to 83 Weeks a lot. And the way Eric Bischoff would always talk about his vision of WCW, it felt like it for this show because there was a great Japanese match to start. There was a fantastic luchador match, and then you get to the end and it's all the sports entertainment nonsense. But hey, as a lifelong WWE fan, I was entertained by a lot of the stuff on this show, stuff that I probably not, I wouldn't say shouldn't, but stuff that wouldn't entertain me nowadays. It's like I was watching through a portal. There were so many people I got to see wrestle for the first time for me, like Scott Hall, Lex Luger, Piper, Hogan, like all these people have never seen wrestle. I got to see them do some pretty fine work. So it was a really fun time for me. But anyways, I say we just hop into our first match, which was it seemed like an unannounced match. Yuji Nagata versus Ultimo Dragon. Holy crap, this was a great match. What a belter. Starts off pretty strong with Yuji Nagata mostly taking control. It's a lot of super strong kicks, like Danielson kicks, like Danielson AEW modern kicks. And to see it in 1997 was kind of crazy. And then it's really just a back and forth battle. They're just trying to go for their own moves. So Ultimo's going for the Dragon Sleeper, which makes sense. He hit a couple beautiful dragon screws, which I was like, wait, is this the guy that made them? Because he does them better than anyone else. And then there was a fantastic little bit where Ultimo went up for a power, or Nagata got him up for a power bomb, but Ultimo slipped out and hit him with a Dragon Sleeper. That wouldn't look out of place on AEW Dynamite today. So again, seeing it 27 years ago, insane. And finally, Nagata wins with a pretty surprise Fujiwara armbar. And this was a fantastic match to start off with. What did you two think?
Man, we just saw Yuji Nagata like on AEW. Like, what are we? Awesome. Like he, well, okay. Ultimo Dragon has always been one of my favorite mid card WCW wrestlers. I have fond memories of him showing up, coming to the ring with like 9 championship titles. His former manager, Sonny Ono. So a little background, this is him kind of like coming off of their partnership, and obviously Sonny Ono uh, paid Yuji Nagata to break Ultimo Dragon's arm. Uh, yeah, they used to be a team. And yeah, Ultimo Dragon is so good at what he does. And man, I don't think he retired yet. I'm gonna have to look that up. Uh,
Ultimo?
I, I don't know, but I
Wow.
love how he spent a lot of time in Mexico too, which I think they kind of touched on. Mike Tenay will be that amazing fact giver for the first 3 matches of the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Love Mike Tenay. He was quite the asset to TNA for many years too. What about you, Chad?
I just have to say, what a treat it was to listen to Bobby the Brain Heenan on commentary again. He was popping me all kinds of stuff during, well, most of the show, but definitely this match. He was when they were doing the limb work and stuff. Just I forgot just how like low key hilarious he could be. But not it was good. It was the type of match I would be into like today. It was a lot of good like limb work and storytelling and yeah, it was a really good match by 2 master technicians.
I
Yeah,
like how they were.
Oh, you go
Oh,
ahead, Dave.
yeah, I like how they were just trying to tell the story of targeting the elbow, the arm of Ultimo, and yeah, great storytelling and a great physical match.
Yeah.
We were talking about how we just saw Yuji Nagata on Collision not too long ago. He wrestled Danielson of all people. And I literally, after the match was over, I just wrote, I can see why Danielson had this guy on his bucket list. Like, we didn't see this Yuji Nagata when we watched him, but that's 27 years apart. I think he
Yeah.
gets past this in his prime. My goodness, he's fantastic. So, all in all, a great match. And to piggyback on what you're saying, Chad, just but overall, this announced team, what a powerful trio. Tony Schiavone on play-by-play, Bobby the Brain Heenan as just kind of silly, and then Dusty Rhodes. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it made me feel all kinds of feelings. Nostalgia is one hell of a drug, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm hooked on it. You know what I
Anyways,
mean?
going on to our next match. Speaking of people still wrestling today, but maybe they shouldn't. A baby Lionheart Chris Jericho versus just Gedo. That's his name, is just Gedo. I've never seen this man, never heard of this man before, but I was all in. This match was pretty simple. Chris Jericho tried to get some offense in, and Gedo would slam him down with some powerful strikes. But the only thing I can remember about this match is that awful botch that Jericho had. And I don't want to be like, oh, you suck. But it was, I rewound because I was like, is he dead? Like, obviously he's not, but Yuji Nagata goes for a power bomb, and Chris Jericho tries to do a little bit of a Hurricane Rana and basically face plants himself when he lands. And I can't believe that man finished the match. But he finished it off with, I would say, one of the best lion tamers I've ever seen. But I imagine all of his lion tamers looked that way back in the day. But
Hmm.
this match was pretty short, pretty sweet, and it's just one of those where it was like, man, why wasn't Jericho used when he was great? Because he's unironically fantastic coming around. He's jaw jacking to the crowd, and then he went to the WWF, and he had this great big surge of presence when he came in, and then it all kind of dwindled, and he didn't really get a chance to shine until he came back in like 2006 or whatever. And even then, it's arguable if he didn't get enough push. But that's enough. That's a story for another day. What'd you two think of this match?
Well, yeah, Jericho hasn't been bugging me too much lately. I've been into the humble Lionheart Jericho gimmick. Yeah, he didn't go away like we wanted him to do, but we got a little compromise. So, yeah, looking back on it, uh, back in '97, watching him, hit that moonsault, do that lion tamer. He could go. Uh, he was in great shape. Really got the crowd into it. He could really, interact with them and get a response. So yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, it was a good like mid card. Like I said, WCW never really like Jericho always tried to get over, but they just never really gave him the time of day. But uh, yeah, it was it was a good match, sort of to kind of ramp you up into into it. It wouldn't even be like an AEW Dynamite main event by today's standards, but it was a good match.
What do you mean? The main event of next week's Dynamite is going to be Jericho versus Gedo Jr.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Wow.
But this match was it was fun. It was fun for what it was, but it wasn't the worst match on the show. But there was a plenty of other more entertaining matches to see. Speaking of
Real
which,
quick, I did not like how they changed Jericho's music. That really bugged me. Like
oh, so it was
it's
basically
not
like it wasn't that Break the Walls Down. Was it Pantera back in the day?
No, it was kind of a generic kind of a rockin' kind of, you know, kind of song. But yeah, that really bugged me. I was like, wait a minute, like this doesn't sound right. But they did an incredible job of making it sound like it
Yeah.
kind of belonged there.
Yeah, if you
But
weren't
yeah,
paying attention.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, just a small gripe. I'm sure they couldn't get the license to it. And I think Chad, you were telling me that they did a lot of that during the network day or right? The
Yeah,
network
yeah,
days.
yeah, when the WWE network was buying up all the rights to everything, you could watch like old like AWA matches and stuff, and there'd be times where you're like, oh, they had to change that for reasons. Kind of neat to
Yeah.
see. It's insane how they can pull that off, though.
Yeah, again, I didn't notice. I was like, oh, this is like, I guess this is his WCW theme. It still had the Break the Walls Down. And then when they went to WWF, but it fooled me. I didn't even know.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
anyways, on to this next match, which I know I'm going to do an injustice because I did a little bit of research, and this is regarded as one of the greatest matches in WCW history. Which, okay, I believe it. This is one of the best matches I've ever seen. Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr. in a mask versus title match. Now, immediately, this first minute of this match is insane. These two are moving as fast as they can because I think it's not like the crowd was dead, but they're like, we're going to make this crowd care about everything we do. Every single move is going to count, and that mattered, which was awesome. Just nothing but spins and kicks and hard hitting. I loved just about everything. One of the biggest things about this match early on was Eddie Guerrero actually was ripping up Ray's mask, and you could kind of see his face. Like every other time in a mask match, they'll rip it off, they'll rip it a little bit, they'll tug it, but nothing will happen. But these guys, I mean, of course, they're best friends in real life. They didn't care. They were just going for it. There were crazy moves like Rey Mysterio hitting a cartwheel, and then immediately Eddie Guerrero would put him in a back body drop. uh Guerrero perfectly was sliding under the ring, and then not Jericho, Mysterio would crotch him with the post. Like it was insane. They were moving a mile a minute. Every single roll up they had, I kind of was buying because I didn't know the end of this match. So I was like, oh, that'll end. Oh, that'll end. And I knew Mysterio loses his mask at some point. So I was like, I might have well been this. Uh, Eddie Guerrero hit a disgustingly good power bomb on Rey Mysterio. It looked fantastic. And then finally, it ended with a looks like Eddie Guerrero was going for a jackknife power bomb, but Mysterio somehow got that into a sunset flip and was able to win the match and win the WCW Cruiserweight title, I imagine. So, holy crap, Dave, how was this match watching it live back in the day?
Well, I didn't get to watch it live back in the day. I think I had a buddy who he recorded most of the pay-per-views, and I would, he'd bring it into school the next Monday.
For most of you younger viewers, Google VHS tape.
Hey, I used VHSs when I was a kid, and I'm not that young. I remember.
Yeah, we were tape trading, and yeah, like I really didn't, understand the gravity and the acclaim of this specific match until I was older. So, uh, you know, the more getting on YouTube and discovering little bits and pieces, like it's like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that was amazing. Like I didn't really appreciate it as much until I got older. But yeah. Woo. Um
Yeah. Go ahead. Didn't sound like you were done.
uh, oh yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say I really liked how Eddie Guerrero did the gory special named after his dad, Gory Guerrero.
Mhm.
The Phantom ring gear for Mysterio. Love it. Like
It's a
I
great
really like
look.
that movie with Billy Zane from the 90s. And yeah, it was just incredible. Like uh it's pretty memorable match for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing to see Dominic Mysterio's father and Rey Mysterio have a match together. But
Oh
uh,
yeah.
but one of the things like that really struck me, like they are fast, they are hard hitting, like even by today's standards, it was an amazing match. But they also knew when to slow it down, when to sell. Like they had that amazing balance of like being able to like go and go hard, yet at the same time like add the drama. Like I feel like that's a kind of a part of a lost art. Like you don't see that nearly as often as I would hope today. Like because yeah, you were said it was gripping. Like I could not stop watching, and I had a kind of an idea of what the finish was, but I was like, oh, was this it? Oh God, like I cared about everything that happened. It was really well done.
Yeah, I bet on every near fall. I didn't really have someone who I wanted to win one way or the other. But speaking of people who I watched wrestle for the first time, this is my first ever Eddie Guerrero match, and let me tell you, he did not disappoint. So uh, hopefully, with more of this review, I can watch more. I mean, I can just watch more Eddie Guerrero as is, but hopefully, we can watch more and talk about him more because
Yeah,
he was a goddamn legend.
yeah,
One more
But
point. Really like Mike Tenay for his giving us the gift of knowing that Rey Mysterio was Calibre, which is hummingbird, before he got the Mysterio gimmick. I like that. I love those little tidbits. He is great for that.
mhm. All right. Well, in between this match and the next match, we got a little segment between Bischoff and Hulk Hogan. And to cut a long story short, Hogan's not going to wrestle unless Sting is not going to be there. They wanted it in writing that Sting won't be there. So Hogan's trying to throw off the whole show. And, you know, I'm fine with angles like these. Like Full Gear last year kind of annoyed me with the is MJF gonna make it? Is it gonna be Adam Cole versus Jay White? When everyone was like, no, that's not gonna be the case. And so this was kind of the same thing where it's like, there's no way Hulk Hogan's not gonna be there. And with how much they would bring it up during commentary, it kind of brought down a few matches, but it wasn't that bad. They want to make a little drama in the show. But the next match, speaking of two people I've never seen before, it was two people I've never heard before. Steve Mongo McMichael versus Alex Wright. Boy, this match was a mess, if I'm being honest with you. But I still laughed. I still liked it. So it starts off with like the worst, like jaw jocking to the crowd I've ever seen. Because like when you're trying to amp up Hogan, you're like, ooh, you'll like do like that. but he would just be like, it was so awkward. This Mongo McMichael guy, I've never seen him. Was he like a football player or something?
Mm-hmm.
I could tell he couldn't.
Chicago Bears.
Oh my gosh. And so it was a lot of this Alex Wright guy who I've never heard of before working over Mongo McMichael for most of the match. It was mostly rest holds, but whenever he hit a European uppercut, it was slick. So I had to give him credit for that. And then that kind of goes on for like 5 minutes. And then Alex Wright goes for a tombstone and he botches it, or like Mongo was gonna get out of it and he just kind of fell out of it, which whatever, I think that was the plan. And then out of nowhere, Mongo hits a tombstone, is going for the counter. But then it's the longest ref distraction I've seen in my entire life. Where was it Deborah on the outside? So Deborah's trying to get the ref's attention, and they go from like corner to corner to corner. And then Goldberg slinks in, and Mongo McMichael gets behind the ref, and Goldberg has to like step over Alex to spear him, who's like a foot from the ref. So I don't know how the ref didn't hear any of this. And then he picks him up for a jackhammer, and it looks like he hits the ref with Mongo and hits him with the jackhammer, which it looked really good. So this is young Goldberg. He looks great. And then the ref like looks around and he can like see Goldberg, but he still has to ignore Goldberg. And then he puts Alex Wright on him. And then he's like, oh, I guess I'll count the pin. 1, 2, 3. That makes sense to me. So I was laughing. But that was like the worst ref distraction spot I've ever seen. So what did you two think about this match?
Well, I took 3 notes for this. The first one was that was a terrible ref. Third one was Goldberg was a beast. Then the third note is just steroids? Question mark? Question mark? Question mark?
Yeah.
It was a hot flaming mess, but it was, fun.
Yeah.
I liked how at one point Alex Wright was basically out blocking a football player during the match. Yeah, Goldberg interfered. Man, yeah. Well, I did a little reading earlier today, and they weren't quite sure how they wanted to present Goldberg at that point. They were still playing with like what he was gonna be. So yeah, that was something that didn't stick, thankfully. uh,
Yeah.
yeah, that
I
was
think,
his real Super Bowl ring too. Mongo's.
and then Goldberg took it and he was like, this is mine now. And that was that. Yeah, I'm used to Oldberg. So seeing Goldberg, he looked great. So I can see why he was the phenomenon that he was. But this match, it was definitely something. It definitely happened. And then I think after this match, there was another NWO promo, this time for Macho Man and Elizabeth. And once again, to cut a long story short, Macho Man is the best wrestler in the world, and he's going to beat DDP. So we'll see if that's the case. But next up, we got Disco Inferno versus Miss Jackie. Wow, intergender wrestling in 1997. Am I dreaming? This was something, because the first 5 minutes was just Disco Inferno getting in and out of the ring, in and out, in and out, in and out, because he wouldn't put a hand on Miss Jackie, which, okay, this is an odd spot for a pay-per-view, but I get it. He doesn't want to hit a woman, even though he's in the match. So, cool. And then finally, whenever they would get into the match, it was actually not that bad, because Miss Jackie looked pretty good and Disco Inferno sold pretty well for her. My favorite part was like early on, kind of the first big move was basically Jackie did a sunset flip roll up, kind of, and it was pretty gosh darn good. So I like that. And I was pretty negative on this match, but then I was starting to watch the crowd of all things, which this is something that kind of made me sad just about modern day crowds. But this crowd was so into everything on this show, even the bad stuff. They were into this. So I was like, you know what? I'm not liking this match, but watching this crowd, they're like, yeah, you get it, Miss Jackie. It was so funny to watch. So it kind of like saved the match a little bit for me. And then Jackie was hitting some really good moves. Like she had an excellent DDT on Disco. I would have just ended it there, but basically Disco kicked out, and he got up to the corner, and Jackie went for a roll up, and she won. So I don't really know why Jackie won. I don't really know why this match happened, but you know what? I think everyone had fun, so it's okay. Dave, do you have any context for this?
Uh, Yeah, I think there was something going on with Disco Inferno's contract, and like he had to like be beat by her or something like that. It was just like, yeah, there was some weird stuff going on with his contract, and I think after this or right before it, he was gonna quit or something, and he was in talks with WWF, but he agreed to do the job for Jacqueline, basically. Uh, Not gonna work for me, brother, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, it was a weird match. Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, a lot of running in and out of the ring, first 5 minutes. Yeah, I don't know, man. Jacqueline, I call it the Jade Cargill effect now, where you're always trying to tuck your boobie back. Like that's a little distracting for me. Jade Cargill's doing that 30 times a match, and
Hmm.
that always took me out of it a little bit. Just wear something a little more, I don't know. I don't want to sound like a Quaker.
Supportive.
We don't want a wardrobe malfunction on live TV. Nobody wants that. I mean, people do want that, but the network
Uh,
executives don't. So you got to care about them. So just wear something that's a little bit more protective, I guess. I wouldn't even say concealing, but like it ain't
yeah,
gonna come out.
supportive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jacqueline was cool. She went to the WWF, had a little run there. I think she was the women's champion for a bit.
Didn't
I
she
Yeah,
think
do a
that
she
stint
was
in ECW too?
I think she started in
probably
ECW,
Huh?
but I'm pretty sure she won the hardcore title too. I think there was a
Cool.
couple women who won the hardcore title, and I think Jackie was one of them.
Nice.
What do you think about the match, Chad?
Um, it's one of those ones where I like the idea of it more than the execution. Like they could have truncated the him not wanting to fight him and lollygagging for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then just like skip straight to the good stuff. But like you said, it was a different time. I don't know what the build was, so I don't. Maybe I would have been more into it, but it's kind of bored by the whole thing.
Yeah, you could have like 30 seconds to a minute of him avoiding her,
Yeah,
and then either have a 5-minute match or keep the 10-minute
yeah.
length and actually have 9 minutes of a match. Like, there's ways you could get around this. I just wouldn't have had him evading so much because it wasn't like didn't make anyone look bad, but
Didn't
it
make
wasn't
anyone look good
entertaining.
either.
No, it wasn't entertaining.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It was no Drexel versus Amira.
yeah, that was a pretty dang good intergender match. But speaking of apparently people that need to die, Ric Flair versus Curt Hennig in a U.S. title match. I thought this was a pretty dang good match. I think I got a little too excited for it because I was like, holy crap, look for Ric Flair versus Curt Hennig. This is going to be off the wall. And it wasn't, but it was fun. It was still good. So basically starts off, Hennig comes out in the Nature Boy robe. Ooh, big heat, brother. And then Flair, he's pissed. He runs out. He starts beating up Hennig, and Flair has the first part of this match for about a good minute or so, but Hennig makes a quick comeback with a nice clothesline. And then it's a lot of Hennig working over Flair's leg, but it's not like him kicking it or him twisting it. He's like wrapping it around himself and like dropping himself on it. Like it's really really cool and inventive offense to just work over a leg. But man, this Curt Hennig guy, he's pretty good. Am I right? Uh, I just thought he was
He almost wrestled the perfect match.
almost, but that
ooh,
was Edge and Randy Orton. They had the greatest wrestling match ever. So that's been decided. And then a big point that like really like I was watching this match but woke me up. Hennig just tried to kill Ric Flair with a chair because Ric Flair was down on the apron and Hagen just started running up with a chair and went wham as hard as he could. And Ric Flair moved at the last minute. I was like, if that went wrong, this man would have been dead. And then Hennig at one point is like, I'm good. I don't want to do this. And he tries to walk away. But of course, Ric Flair runs in and brings him back in. And Flair has a lot of great comeback spots, which is just odd for me because I've known Flair as like the forever heel. But this is in that WCW NWO time where if you're not NWO, you're automatically a good guy. So it was fun seeing Flair in that way and seeing him stand up for WCW. And then in the end, it had a pretty dumb finish, I'll be honest, which is why you probably shouldn't do DQs on pay-per-views. But Flair basically caught Hennig in the ropes and tied him up, and then he put the title belt on his head, and then he stomped him. And that got him the DQ, which, yeah, that makes sense, but wouldn't you expect him to DQ over that? And then it looked like Virgil and another, it wasn't called Virgil, but Vincent, right? In WCW?
Mhm.
Vincent and another guy from the NWO came to protect Curt Hennig in his US championship, whereas all the WCW refs were pulling Ric Flair off. And I really liked them on commentary because they were like, why are you pulling Flair off? He's DQ'd, sure, but he's the one trying to do something for us. Like, he's the good guy here. So I thought this was a pretty fun match. Nothing too insane, but it had a kind of dumb finish, but it didn't falter it. What did you two think?
I loved it. This is when I really started perking up after a few kind of mid card matches, and I was like, whoa, like I forgot how good Curt Hennig was. Like, okay, there was a reason why he was called Mr. Perfect. He was really friggin' good. And like you said, it was really kind of cool to see Flair in a kind of more face-ish role and not and when he was when he was young and physically able. I was like, oh yeah, there was a reason why these guys are legends and amazing, and it was really cool to watch. And yet again, Schiavone and Heenan made this match for me. Like you said, them selling like, well, this, he's the good guy, and the selling the robe and all that. I was like, yeah, I forgot how good this era of wrestling could be when it was firing on all cylinders. I was like, oh yeah, this was probably for me. This was my match of the night.
Dude, what a hot crowd too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Man. Yeah, a little trivia for the match. Hennig didn't actually have the US title. That was the cruiserweight belt. Very same belt that Rey Mysterio won earlier in the night. Uh he
Oh,
the theory is like this happened sometimes, like he lost the belt or they didn't have it like somehow
yeah.
like in the moment. So yeah, I was like, wait a minute, like because he didn't have it on and he kind of kept it kind of tilted a little bit to where you
Yeah, he
couldn't.
kept it always kind of down, and they never really showed it. Like, especially when Hennig was tied up, you saw it from Hennig's back. So you knew the title was on his head, but you didn't see the actual belt.
Yep.
That's really interesting.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
I like how Hennig cut the sleeves off the robe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Curt Hennig, man, what a athlete. Uh, it's kind of a shame that Curtis Axel never
No,
hit those heights.
I think one of his catchphrases was like the chains are off, and I think about that all the time. Like, I'm like, the chains are off. I'm gonna go have a Curtis Axel day. No
Oh,
disrespect on the man, but he did not live up to the hype. But I'm sure he's got a great life and career outside of wrestling because I haven't heard about him since he got released from WWE like almost 10 years ago at this point.
Oof, can't believe it's been that long.
Mm-hmm. But this was a fine match, and then we had two kind of out of ring segments. So there's a little bit of break from the action. But first, it was another Macho Man promo on basically on an announcer's desk, and it was essentially the same thing of I'm the best wrestler in the world. I'm going to beat DDP. Man, I wonder if he does. And then we cut. We were watching on Peacock, and I have the ad version, and it cut off like half of Macho Man's promo for me, so I didn't get to see it all, which that kind of sucked. But then you come back to the ring, and they're interviewing JJ Dillon, who I imagine is either the on-screen president or the actual president or a chairman or like a good guy WCW authority figure. And they're saying, hey, what's going to happen in the main event? And he basically told Hogan and Bischoff to shove it. Hogan's going to be in that match no matter what, which I always like it when the face authority figures are like, I don't care about you heels. You're going to be in that match no matter what. And then Bischoff tried to run out and be like, you don't have the stroke. You don't have the whatever. And J.J. Dillon was like, I don't care. Here's a paper. You can read it. And he walked off. So I thought that was a fine, impactful segment. Do you have anything to add, boys?
I do not.
No, so JJ Dillon, little backstory, was part of the original Four Horsemen. He was their manager back in NWA. I remember reading at this point he had just come back from like a pay dispute or something with WCW, so this is like him fresh coming back. And yeah, he was on AEW television at one point for something they were doing. Remember that, Chad?
Ooh, vaguely, yeah.
Something with Tully, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But
Oh
yeah,
man.
I can't remember the
That's
circumstances.
pretty cool, bringing back all the WCW boys that WWE couldn't be bothered with, like Shivani, unfortunately. But we're already moving on to our next match. Now, when I was talking about matches that I shouldn't have enjoyed, but I did, this is one of them. So we got Lex Luger versus Scott Hall with Larry Zbyszko as special guest referee. Now, spoilers for the match, but this was the Larry Zbyszko show. Don't worry about the other two clowns in the ring. This is all about Larry Zbyszko. And I imagine, using what little knowledge I have, this is setting up the Eric Bischoff Larry Zbyszko match at Starrcade the next month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that I thought it was a pretty good match to set up that. But the first bit of this match, very slow, very methodical. It's a lot of holds. You got Scott Hall, he's got Lex Luger in a toothpick hold, and then Luger, a big pop for him as he reverses it. He's got Hall in the hold. And it's still pretty slow. But one thing I really wanted to notice is this is, of course, my first Scott Hall Lex Luger match. Scott Hall's just got a certain aura, man. He is something else. That man is cool. I know it's his gimmick that he's the bad guy and he's cool, but it's true.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty dang good. There was a certain bit where like Hall just like did a follow away slam on Lex Luger, and that got a 2 count. And Six is on the outside going, that was 3! He is screaming at the top of his lungs over this one fall. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's not that serious, pal. And then as soon as let me see here, it was Bischoff kind of ran in. That's when this match really picked up and it started getting really entertaining. And of course, Zbyszko kept being distracted by Bischoff, and eventually Six ran in, missed a kick, but Luger still sold it. And then I wrote down Scott Hall hit him with the Razor's Edge, which is what it was called in WWF. I'm sure it was something else, but he hit him with his jackknife powerbomb, pinned him, got the win. And I really liked Zbyszko's selling of all of this, where he really didn't want to have to hold up Scott Hall's hand. And Scott Hall was like, you got to do it. You got to do it. And he held it up for a second, immediately dropped it. And he just was like, I'm disgusted. And he's like, you know what? I want the instant replay. And they showed it up on the screen and the crowd's going crazy. He's like, I saw Six kick him. This match isn't over. And Scott Hall's like, well, I'm not coming back. I don't care. And Zbyszko just starts counting immediately, and he's doing a fast count. Oh, I was sports entertained to all hell with this bit. And he runs in, and then Lex Luger gets the torture rack. And I was like, come on, Lex. I've never cared about you before today, but you can do it. You can do it. And then Six runs in, and it's another DQ. So I was kind of disappointed with that. I was like, 2 DQs in a row? Are you kidding me? But even though it was a bit of slow, it was a pretty dang fun ending. I had a blast with it. And my favorite bit was when Scott Hall counted the pin and Bischoff was doing the cocky pin, right? Tony Schiavone just piped in and be like, I want to be a wrestler, mama. Talking about Eric Bischoff. So I thought that was a pretty good line from him. But I hate to say it, this might have been my match of the night looking back because it was the one I enjoyed the most. But what about you two?
That's fair. Now, yeah, when they got when they were hitting the sports entertainment correct, this is what it looked like. It was like overbooked and kind of clunky, but who cares? It was fun. Dave, how this nostalgia blast hit you?
Dude, anything with NWO in it, makes me happy. I hate, like, as a child, like, taking all this stuff seriously, I hated the NWO. Like, I had a buddy who I would get the tapes from, and he loved them. Like, I was like, "Dude, how can you love the NWO?" Like, I was, like, so concerned for him, and, like,
Hmm.
but now anything NWO, I just wanna watch it, I wanna see it, it's so good. Uh, yeah, Luger, like, what a specimen of an
Yeah.
athlete, like, good lord, always loved the torture rack, especially when he'd get, like, the Giant or Big Show in it, or, someone like that, and, you're right, Chandler, Scott Hall was, so cool, like, unbelievably, and, they changed the name of the move to the Outsider's Edge.
That makes sense, but I couldn't remember, and they didn't say it. They were just like, "Oh, he hit him." So, but that I again thoroughly sports entertained. I had a lot of fun with this match. I'm glad I watched it. But this next match again, this is where we're hitting a lot of bangers. We got Diamond Dallas Page versus Macho Man Savage in a Las Vegas death match. Holy heck, this was a good one. Uh, so starts off pretty hot with some crowd brawling. I thought it was pretty good. There was this one guy in one shot where he just took off his shirt and he's trying to go crazy, but there's people all around him. So he's like, uh, uh, and like they're just kind of awkwardly standing around him, but it was really funny. And then we didn't even talk about this, but something I really appreciated was all the fun decorations they had for the stage, like the coffins and the tombstones and all the evil Halloween stuff. And then the point of that was so that Diamond Dallas Page could throw Randy Savage through it. It was amazing. Why don't they do this more? And so he's throwing them through the tombstones. He's picking them up. He's putting them in coffins. And I was like, this is a great start. I can't believe they don't do this every time. Like, I get we have trick or treat street fights and whatever, but this was such fun banter. I loved it so much. And then basically they get back into the ring and Macho Man beats DDP down and Macho Man leaves the ring. He goes and assaults a cameraman and steals the camera and he's trying to hit DDP with it, but DDP basically kicks it perfectly back into his own face. I thought that was a really fun spot. Uh and then Elizabeth was wrapping like the camera cord around DDP's throat, which again, there's a lot of stuff that I don't really see these days. I thought it was really cool when they were using the actual technology and equipment to interfere in the match. And Kimberly comes out and puts a stop to Elizabeth. So that was fun. And then DDP starts like he had this amazing comeback. And DDP is like one of the few people that I've seen him wrestle before, but he was at like the 2015 Rumble. I didn't see this DDP. I didn't see up and coming star DDP where he's got the best comeback I've ever seen. He's fighting him with all he got. Both these men, fantastic sellers. They looked like they were dying, like actually dying in this death match. And uh, I loved the Swerve and Hangman death match that we saw last year. It is still one of my favorite matches, but it was kind of nice to see a match like this where it was a bit more reserved and they're still like really showing the effects of it. I really liked that. And then there was another ref bump, but DDP landed his cutter. And then DDP was outside on the ring, and there's an evil sting. Wah wah. And he hits poor DDP with the bat, and Macho Man's able to get up from the cutter, but DDP's not able to get up from the bat. So this is unfortunately a Savage win, another win for the NWO, and then he beats up poor DDP afterwards. But I thought this was still a fantastic match. The only thing I would have done was had DDP win, but that's just me. What did you two think?
I enjoyed it. It's funny because through with all the wrestling media I consume, people always refer to DDP's FPOS rib tape. And this was the match he came out with the rib tape. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, it's the thing. So I thought that was funny. And yeah, it's kind of cool to see this style, this like kind of, it's a little more slower plotting, but it relies so much on the drama and the storytelling. And I'm so used to watching AEW so often now where it feels like so much sped up, but I was like, oh no, this is when it's really good. Like they do such a good job of the selling and the drama and the storytelling that like the what the how to does Bischoff always put it, it's the space in between the moves that matters. And I was like, this match is the perfect example of that. I thought like, oh yeah, like the moves and the violence, it was cool, but it was the stories in between the moves I thought was the most interesting part. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, the match of the night for me. Uh, I know they have a rematch later on. Man, I can't remember what pay-per-view, maybe a Super Brawl or something like that. But yeah, DDP finally goes over uh, with the diamond cutter. Good stuff. But yeah, NWO Macho Man is my favorite iteration of Macho Man. That's the ultimate for me. He was so vicious and evil and playing mind games. It was such a good character for him. And DDP, he was the people's champ, man. Like he was WCW's people's champ when The Rock was WWF's people's champ. Uh yeah, Diamond Dallas Page has always been, one of my favorites. DDP Yoga, man, he's still doing great things,
Right?
changing lives. Um, I did read an interview from him not that long ago where he considers his AEW match, like people ask him, like, when are you gonna have your final match? He considers that his final match. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, good match. Loved it. I loved how Dusty Rhodes got all excited when uh he called it the waitress tray
Oh
when they
yeah.
he was having a good old time with that. Yeah, just
And
hearing
then
Dusty.
yeah. And then I think it was either Tony or Bobby. They're like, I don't see any waitresses. What are you talking about? That's not a waitress tray. And it's like, I don't think you don't need to care about the semantics, man. But
Yep.
it was a fun match. It was great to see those two wrestle. Finally, we're on to the big old main event of our show. Started off really good. Again, I don't know much about old WCW, so I was pretty surprised to see Michael Buffer, of all people, saying his iconic line, "We're not going to get sued for this, right? Let's get ready to rumble." Oh my goodness. I thought that was a
He
great way to
he,
start.
he was on every WCW pay-per-view, every main event.
That's pretty cool. Kind of like JR, kind of for the AEW pay per views where he's the main event commentator. I like that. I think
Mhm.
that's pretty cool. So this match was a match, all right. So it's got a steel cage match between Roddy Piper versus Hulk Hogan, not for the WCW belt, but I believe Piper stole the belt from Hogan. And basically, it starts off. It's kind of odd because in the prelude, Michael Buffer's like, if there even is a survivor, they'll win by pinfall or submission or whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, like, so this is going to be a pretty serious match. And almost immediately, Hogan's trying to leave the cage, which that kind of annoyed me because I grew up on WWE cage matches. And unlike everything else where I'm used to, like, oh, it's the WWE way, it's the right way, I always hated their cage matches because it's like, I want to see you two fight and you're trying to leave. I think that's stupid. And so the doors open and one of them's like, if Hogan gets out, it's over. And then he got out and nothing happened. So it's like 5 minutes in and they're out of the cage and they're fighting around. And it's not like it's bad, but I was like, you're not even in the cage. But one of my favorite bits was when Hogan was trying to climb up the cage. Piper just started whipping him with his belt and then he bit him on the ass. I thought that was pretty funny. So Piper's able to save this, of course. And then Sting what starts coming out. But I was like, that guy's not Sting. He's way too short. He's so short. That's not Sting. And then a bunch of other Stings start coming out. Every time they started climbing up the cage, I wrote it down and I was like, I don't know why they're climbing up the cage. They're just climbing up for funsies. But like it scared me because it was wobbling so much. I was like, oh God, they're gonna fall and break their neck. And then when they were fighting each other on the top of the cage, they were just basically beating the heck out of each other. I was like, there's no way either of these guys are gonna fall off this cage because they're not. But could you imagine if one of them fell at that moment? Oh, this would have been insane. And then Savage runs in and he actually tries to hit an elbow from the top cage, but he ends up hitting Hogan. Uh-oh, NWO's falling apart. And Piper's managed to choke him with the shirt. And then Hogan hit him with a world title shot and 2 leg drops, and he's still kicked out. Holy AEW, Batman. This is 1997. So I was like, oh my gosh, this Piper guy, he won't quit. And then finally, Piper's able to win with the sleeper. I thought it was a pretty nice way for Piper to win, but then all the NWO just kind of jump in and they beat up Piper. So, and they handcuff him to the ring. And the weirdest part, you know what I'm going to talk about, right? A fan in Sting makeup climbs the cage and jumps in.
They kick his
And
ass.
but like they kind of work it. Like they put him in the ring and Hogan throws like ooh like worked punches. So was that real or was that a plan? I don't know.
I don't. No one's copped to it to this day.
Mm-hmm. See, because I'm thinking about like again WWE. If a fan goes in, they might show them for a second, and then they're like, "Show anything else? Show anything else?" And because that's all the referee and the security tackling him to the ground and pulling him out of the ring. So I was like, "Oh well, if they're showing it, it's obviously a work." But then I was doing research, and they're like, "Oh no, WCW just used to show this stuff." But again, another thing was like Savage kills people when they get in the ring. So, and he didn't kill this guy. They beat him up, but they didn't kill him. And like the weirdest thing was it was one of the Stings that was holding him down in the beginning. So,
Yeah.
are they working us, brother? Are we working ourselves into a shoot? Or are we shooting ourselves into a work?
Real quick, you should look at the guy who got beat down during the Hulk Hogan turn at Bash of the Beach, like a big, like fat dude tried to get in the ring. He just got on the apron and then just like, dude, Hall and Nash took him out like real punches. Like it
I
was
guess you could get
insane.
away with it in the
Yeah,
90s.
yeah. But yeah, I wrote down here like, so the ref was, his name's Randy Anderson. I was like, why did Randy Anderson unlock the door, then relock it? Like, what was the point of that?
I think
It
you
was almost like a botch, right?
Yeah. You want to talk about overbooking? I think the Luger Hall match was overbooking, but still pretty fun. I think
in the
this one was
best way.
I think this one was a little too overbooked, which like, yeah, Piper got the win on paper. So if you go to Wikipedia, oh, Piper choked out Hogan. But you'll watch it and it's like, oh, they like everyone beats him up and it's kind of like a deflating end. And I was waiting for like especially Sting to come out and save the day, but then it's just over.
Yeah.
It just hits the credits.
Yeah, even Eric Bischoff on 83 Weeks frequently copped to the fact that they were not good at finishes. Like the end of a pay-per-view, most of them are just chaotic and made no sense. And but for some good reason, he'd always be like, well, what's gonna happen next time?
Mhm.
Like they always made it work. My biggest note for this was didn't think this match was gonna be too good, but it was way better than I thought it was gonna be. I actually kind of dug it, at least the beginning before it started getting overbooked. I enjoyed the cheeky Piper bad, like the eye pokes and the biting and all that. I don't know why it tickled me, so I don't know. I was into it.
Well, Hogan must have been really hated for Piper to hit a low blow on him and people cheer. Like, could you imagine being like that kayfabe hated, that you getting hit with low blows and people are excited about it.
Yeah.
That's Vince McMahon. He got low blowed at WrestleMania X7, and it's one of the biggest pops they've ever got.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Hollywood Hogan, like, you can say what you want about the man Terry Bollea, real piece of shit, but like, man, the character Hulk Hogan and Hollywood Hogan, like, there was some respect lost even for the character when that stuff went down with the tape and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know. Hulk Hogan's always gonna be one of my favorite wrestlers. If I can
Yeah.
compartmentalize, you know.
Yeah, you
Except,
have to separate the art from the artist.
Yeah.
yeah, this was my first Hogan and Piper match, and I can see why both of them are legends to this day. Especially Hogan, like his selling was really good for someone of his stature and let's say backstage politicking, I guess, his power. He still sold for Piper. So it's nice that he was still able to play ball. I enjoyed this match. It wasn't my favorite thing on the card, but I definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah. I was a little bummed there was no Sting.
Right?
Like usually he would come out like right at the end around that time, until they got to Starcade, and then he would be a pretty regular. Um, yeah. Let's see, my Mount Rushmore minus Sting was on the card. Flair, Hogan, Macho Man. Yeah, WCW is my jam. I love it. I'm glad you guys got a kick out of it too, and didn't like it wasn't like, oh, this sucked.
Yeah, no.
No,
I am looking forward to the next one when it's your turn again.
yeah, I thought it was a
Um,
great pay-per-view to start, because it's not like a WrestleMania X7 where everybody knows how good it is, right? I'm sure a lot of people know how good WCW Halloween Havoc is 1997, but I never really heard much about it. Like I've heard about the blunders of WCW, but I've never heard of the good shows. And this was definitely a really good show to start off on. I had a ton of fun watching it, and I want to watch more WCW, which is the point, right?
yeah.
Do we want to
Um,
do highs and lows, ups and downs? What was our favorite and least favorite bit of the night? I'll start. Just do it real quick. I think on watching it, I would have said Mysterio and Guerrero, but upon reviewing it, I'm going Luger Hall. I loved the little stupid nonsense at the end. I loved Larry Zbyszko in that match so much. So that was probably my favorite part of the night. That was what I enjoyed the most. My low would have to be Mongo, McMichael, and Wright. That stupid ref thing.
That's exactly what I wrote down.
Like it was funny, but it's funny to laugh at. It's not good. So that would be my high and low.
high for me, probably the Macho Man Piper Vegas match. Low, just specifically, Disco Inferno, running,
That's fair.
avoiding
That's
Jacqueline
fair.
for 5 minutes.
I almost said that, but like the other one was a match, and I still feel like it was worse than the Jackie Disco Inferno thing. How about you, Chad?
Yeah, my low was specifically that ref with Goldberg jackknifing a dude like a foot away from him, and he's still like trying to pull the distraction. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty bad. And yeah, I don't know why I enjoyed it, but yeah, Hennig and Flair for me was my high. I like Dave likes to say, nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and those were two of my boys. So yeah, I think it's probably a big reason why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
They had a great connection in WWF. They were like part of the same faction for quite a while, right before Ric Flair went back to WCW
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
yeah, real cool. You know, something we didn't mention, Raven's Flock.
Oh yeah. What they were just kind of in the crowd, right? What were they trying to
That's what
do?
they that's what they did until they kind of got a little more in the mix, and they would like actually attack people in the ring, and then they were like, having matches.
Mhm.
But yeah, Raven was fresh off of ECW, and so were like half the flock too. Billy Kidman was in the flock. Uh, I don't know if you remember him, Chandler. From
Yeah, I remember
he's a
hearing about him.
he's a backstage producer now for WWE. Um, yeah, let's see. Perry Saturn was in it. Stevie Richards, which I do check out his
Heck yeah.
Stevie Richards like botch videos on
His videos are great.
yeah, he breaks down like pretty big botches like every week or whatever on
Nice.
television. Yeah, the flock was pretty cool. They eventually fell apart and had their civil war, and yeah, it was cool stuff.
I want to change my up or my highlight. It's every single NWO theme had like a silly Halloween
That's
stock-a-thon.
true.
So it was like witch scream and thunder and ooh spooky noises. So I changed my mind. That's my favorite part of the night was all the NWO things. It would stop and
Love it. Uh, yeah. How do you like that NWO theme?
oh, I love it.
Great, right?
I've
It's so
loved it for
good.
years. It's perfect for who they are, just a bunch of assholes trying to wreck everything up. I've always loved the NWO theme.
Yep, it's like makes the DX theme look like
Yeah.
shit. Like,
I've never liked the DX theme, if I'm being honest with you. So comparing
yep,
the
it
two is just
sucks.
night and day. Night and day. Well,
Yep.
I don't know why people really compare NWO and DX. Like, I'm sure DX did a lot, but NWO had their own pay per views.
Yeah.
They were running the show, whereas DX was like an annoying thorn in the side of Vince McMahon sometimes.
There was even one NWO Monday Nitro.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've heard of it. I've never seen it, but
We can review like old episodes of Raw and like
Right.
Nitro and ooh, okay. Dude, the Pandora's box that we are about to enter.
mhm. Oh, yeah. Anything
I want
else
to do
anyone wants? Oh,
no, I just want to throw in there too. I probably want to do an old like all Japan
Oh, cool.
pay-per-view in there too. Get some Minami Toyota matches
Heck yeah.
going on.
as long
Uh
as we can watch it, I have no problem with watching anything as long as we can all watch it.
mhm, yeah,
But
cool.
yeah, so this was our first episode of our retro view. We already know
Yeah.
what we're gonna do next. It's going to be NXT Takeover Dallas, correct? The one right around WrestleMania 32 where
Yep,
they
yep, yep.
stole the show because that
Yeah, it was
WrestleMania was awful.
yeah. Yeah, the black and gold takeovers were always my jam. I don't think I missed a single one, and they were all fantastic. But that one stuck out in my memory because, yeah, it was like, what, WrestleMania? Who cares? They were awesome.
So yeah, well, we did this because there was no collision, but we'll have to find some time to do this. But of course, we want to do it more, and we'll just keep cycling through. It was Dave first, Chad next. I'll come up with something. I'm still cooking. I have a couple ideas. Part of me wants to say WrestleMania 32, just so we can have that contrast. But I feel like if I make Dave watch
Then you got to
WrestleMania
sit through with
32,
it.
he's gonna cancel the retro view because it's really bad. And I've only seen it once, and I don't even want to watch that show again. But that's in the front runnings for my pick. So stay tuned. It's not just good stuff.
Yeah, I'll
But
watch what I gotta watch.
anything else, boys?
Yeah, we trying to pump out more top 5 videos. Make sure to check out the top 5 sickest AEW bumps. Check out our top 5 most brutal variations of the pile driver.
Yeah, I love
And
that one. Watch it; it's worth it.
Number 2 will shock you.
make sure to check out coming up here in about 2 days. We're gonna have most shocking WWE bumps. Yeah, gonna be a premiere here pretty soon.
And Spoiler: Mankind off Hell in the Cell is not on the list.
What? Yeah, and then
Cool.
of course we have our weekly Dynamity and Coliseon reviews, so make sure to check those out. Those are always going to be happening, but other than that, you can also check us out on anywhere you can find audio, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, iHeartRadio, we're all on them. So if you don't want to go to YouTube, we're also elsewhere. Make sure to check out the WWE Cap as well. We're going to have that coming out in a couple days where Chad and I just review the week of WWE. Raw's happening right now. I know The Rock is going to be there, but I don't know what he's doing. But other than that, thank you, boys, for joining me. This was a fun first episode for the Retro View. Make sure to come back next time. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.